The Nigerian Senate has reignited debate over electoral transparency after approving an amendment to the Electoral Act that retains manual transmission of results as a backup option. The controversy stems from an earlier push by civil society groups, political parties and some lawmakers demanding that real-time electronic transmission of polling unit results be made mandatory to curb fraud, strengthen credibility. The Senate has now settled on a Plan B clause that allows manual transmission if technology is said to fail. Critics warn this compromise could undermine efforts to promote transparency and leave room for manipulation ahead of the 2027 general elections. Well, this morning, joining us to discuss the ongoing controversy, especially now that you've seen the budget that has been presented to the Senate by INEC, is the convener of the Revolution Now movement, who's here live with us in the studio. We do have Mr. Omoyele Sowore live. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you for having me.
And also joining us in our studio in Abuja is human rights and electoral reform advocate Peter Akah joins us as well. Good morning to you, Peter.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's start off this conversation. We'll start off from the studio here in Lagos. So let's go straight to you, Mr. Omoyele Sowore. That will be our first point of conversation. And the question simply is, now that we have a Plan B, what does this mean for the 2027 elections? There are fears that, okay, since there's Plan B, the powers that be who do not want growth and progress will find a way to undermine, especially the internet, from working on that day, so as to direct all the entire protocol or, the elections to head to Plan B rather than Plan A.
Well, what is interesting is that this particular provision of the law already existed. It's nothing new. And the BVAS machine that was going to be used to upload this result instantaneously also already has its own Plan B. So there's no reason for a Plan B. The Plan B is simple. The BVAS machine will snap a result that has already been processed at the polling unit and keep it in its memory. And then we'll be searching for internet connectivity. So whenever the BVAS machine is close to any kind of internet connection, it would upload direct to IREF. So there's no need for a Plan B. All you need to do is to make sure that the BVAS machine is programmed to go to. So let's assume that in several of these places you can't transmit immediately. You can still transmit as soon as the BVAS machine finds connectivity. It's as simple as that. So there's no need for Plan B. And the Plan B is already there anyway. What they are calling Plan B is from EC8. And that is what is going to be inside of BVAS machine to be transmitted to IREF. The only argument here is that how soon can you get to IREF so that the public can see it? That's what people are asking for, that the longer it takes and the more there is a loophole, most likely they will capitalize on that loophole to rig the election and produce different results and tell you when you get to court, which is where this is all about. They are trying to expunge the word mandatory from the Electoral Act. To make it, if you make it mandatory, then whatever they bring cannot override what is already inside the memory of the BVAS machine. And last time in 2022 they did something. This same issue could have been resolved. But the moment they knew that they were doing something shady, they went and reprogrammed the BVAS for the next election, which was happening, I think, a week or two after that. Then told everybody, oh, we're sorry, there's no memory anymore in the BVAS machine. So I'm just explaining this to Nigeria. That's the technical side of it that most people don't know, that there's no need for a Plan B. It's already part of what BVAS can do, because your BVAS machine is, as I keep saying, is a bimodal device. It has an offline and online side to it. The offline is the preloaded voter information, and that is brought up when it's activated. That one doesn't require. So the screenshotting of, this is just a screenshot of what has already been done in paper. And that is why, as much as I'm interested in this BVAS story, I am of the more radical view that we should be talking about electronic voting at this point, like they're doing in India, which is going to eliminate manipulation of physical paperwork. Because at the end, what you get from even Beaver's transmission is what has already been processed on that. So if it is rigged, it's what you garbage.
Let's bring Peter into the conversation as well. Mr. Sowore has explained in detail what the beavers should look like and how the beavers should function. But Peter, we've seen you at the forefront of protests, asking and demanding for electoral reforms, particularly with the section that talks about transmission in real time. Now, there's been some sort of an adjustment. Are you still going to go ahead with the protest?
Definitely. In fact, at this point, it should be a national mobilization by Nigerians against elements in government who are hell-bent on subverting the will of the people. It is now clear that a section of persons in government, particularly persons in the ruling party, are doing everything to assault democracy and ensure that the will of the people do not prevail. Because what level of mischief will make a National Assembly who should be helping to ensure that there is transparency and accountability in the electoral process begin to argue on a position that INEC, the electoral umpire, has already concluded? The issue of electronic transmission of result and electronic technology is already foreclosed by INEC. Even as far back as 2019, you can watch and listen to videos by the outgone INEC chairman Mahmoud Yakubu, who, by the way, has been confirmed to become an ambassador today, that INEC has done all their feasibility studies and have been prepared for electronic transmission of results in real time and only needed a law to back it up. The only reason why the 10th Assembly led by Godswill Akpabio is putting a caveat is because they rely on that caveat to do whatever they need to do during the elections. INEC has presented a budget of over 800 billion, and according to that budget, they have earmarked about 200 billion for electronic technology. I beg Nigerians in the name of God, what technology is INEC preparing for with 200 billion? If the Senate President does not believe in the capacity of our Nigerian telcos, MTN and all of them, INEC should immediately go into a partnership with Starlink. We have about 177,000 polling units across Nigeria. A deal to provide Starlink in real time in all polling units will take less than 100 billion. Because as far as 2027 is concerned, we will not leave transmission of result to the discretion of INEC. It was the same issue that caused the glitches in 2023. Until date, we do not have an explanation to what caused the glitch. So we will not allow the 10th Assembly to ensure that they capture and begin to take Nigeria hostage with a clause that will only aid and sustain electoral malpractice and rigging. And just as Comrade Sowore said, India, a country that has more than 300 million registered voters, do not only do electronic transmission, they do electronic voting. The voting population in India is almost more than the total number of persons in Nigeria. And we are saying that this issue is already concluded by INEC. Why is the Senate arguing on behalf of the electoral umpire? So as it is today, we are mobilizing and calling on all Nigerians, civil society, opposition leaders, including people like Oga Sowore and everybody. Nigerians must insist. Whatever that the Senate President is doing, they are playing a script from the villa. President Tinubu has been quiet, but it's not neutral. They want to drag this thing to the end of February so that at the end it becomes late and stale. We must reject it. Every Nigerian must ensure that our votes must count, and it must begin by getting the new bill to be passed, and not just passed without mischief.
You want civil society leaders like Mr. Sowore and others to join in the protest. We did see that His Excellency Peter Obi joined you. We saw that Mr. Rotimi Amechi, His Excellency Mr. Rotimi Amechi joined you as well. What is the importance of these political leaders, joining you? Because there are those who have advocated against this, saying that it might in some measure be politicized. So what is the importance, or do you see the importance in these political leaders joining you?
Everybody should be political in a country. I mean, these are the persons who contested elections in 2023. When they lost, they all were headed to the court, meaning they disagreed with the outcome of that election, meaning somebody did not do something well and they believed in their capacities to win, such that they contested the outcome of that election. So it is only natural that if as leaders in the opposition, you believe that a system must be made efficient for the votes of the people to count and not repeat the same shenanigans of last year, then you will be at the forefront. Because let us not forget that the same President Tinubu who is in power today, in 2014 they were on the streets on the same issue, holding INEC by the jugular. Tinubu protested, Buhari protested, Lai Mohammed Odighi Oyegun, the former APC chairman. So therefore, today as it is, the persons who want to lead Nigeria must prove that it is not all about just winning an election, but that you mean well enough for this country to stand with the people. The Nigerian people have experienced tremendous voter apathy. We cannot have a situation where 93 million persons, according to INEC, will register to vote. 87 million will receive PVCs, and less than 30 million will come out to vote. Mr. Bola Tinubu is seated in the villa with less than 9 million votes. In what examination does a person score less than 50% and is promoted to the next class? It only happens in Nigeria, where a person will have a mandate of less than 20% or 25% of the country. So any person who is well-meaning, it does not matter whether they say we are political, we are not political, everybody must come out and fight for the benefits and the survival of Nigeria. If the persons who are destroying Nigeria are in a political party, why should those who are fighting for a better Nigeria not also take a political position? So this is not about political parties. This is not it is just about well-meaning Nigerians who are sick and tired of being sick and tired, coming together to mobilize and say enough. The foundation of our democracy are free, fair, and credible elections. There is no country where votes count, where leaders will continue to act irresponsibly. There is no country where votes count, where more than 100 persons will be killed in Kwara, and instead of the president to visit Kwara, he rather attended the wedding of a minister for state for defense. We say enough. We must hold leaders accountable, beginning from the ballot box and then strengthen our institutions. So all Nigerians of goodwill who mean well for this country are a part of this demand. Let our votes count. Forget about political parties now.
Thank you very much, Peter. Let's bring the conversation back to our studio here. Mr. Sowore, you've been part and parcel of electioneering. I remember you in June 12, 1993, which is adjudged to be the freest and fairest elections in Nigeria's history. Now let's fast forward to present-day Nigeria. Yesterday at the Senate in Abuja, the new helmsman at INEC, Professor Joshua Mufita, defended what will be Nigeria's most expensive elections, 800 billion plus. And they say to whom much is given, much is expected. Now that we've thrown so much money at it, and there's a new man whose CV looks quite good on paper, but has yet to be battle-tested. What are your expectations? Are you hopeful that, you know, perhaps we might get to the same heights we got to in 1993, looking 40 years down the line, 30 years?
Well, I'm one of the leaders of political parties who met with Professor Mufita, and I can tell you that he's not tested yet. And he seems to still be revealing in what I think is absolute naivete about the electoral system in Nigeria. He was just there talking and listening to himself. When I told him when I was leaving the meeting, I said, I've heard that you are a priest, you've been a lawyer, a university professor, but you never had this kind of job before. So you better go and work, because we're there with all these political parties that were praising him as usual. And I told him, these same guys praise your predecessor. They praise everybody that sits on your seat. That's almost the nature of Nigerians. So my worry is that he came in at the time that they had already set up INEC to do whatever they want to do. It was the last part of the jigsaw puzzle that came and sat on that seat. I don't see him doing much. It's always also up to the Nigerian people to determine whether they want free and fair elections. There's never been that INEC, as we know it now, the electoral body as an institution, ever done free and fair elections before. Except even during June 12th, it was only free and fair because the military wasn't expecting the Nigerian people to stand for free and fair elections.
So when you say only Nigerians can determine if they want free and fair elections, in what way and what can they do? Because I believe many Nigerians want free, fair, and credible elections.
Oh, absolutely. What I find very interesting about Nigerians is that even though progressively they've lost interest in electioneering, I think they're still interested in democracy. And that's why you see the excitement. I think it's the last piece of our ego that's still alive. It's like, you know, I'm going to, even if it is misguided or misplaced, that I can choose who is going to be my leader or who is going to rule over me. So that means that people have to get back interested in the democratic process, genuinely interested in democratic process. When I say democratic process is not elections alone. That's some big mistake people make. You can actually elect someone who may not be your choice and decide democratically to stand on the day of his swearing in and say you don't want him anymore. He will never be sworn in. People don't know this, that you can vote with several parts of your body. You can vote with your brain, your tongue, then you can vote with your feet. And that is where protest politics comes in. And I'm glad that Peter is talking about politicians. It was great to see politicians become protesters. They used to mock us. When in 2023, the Labour Party was rigged out of the election, and they were complaining to me. I said, go and protest. If Peter Obi had led a protest in 2023, we probably would have had a different outcome because all his obedient members said they want to protest. You have to protest. Even the judiciary do listen to protests when they are making decisions. Judges are part of the society. But if you don't protest, you let them do whatever they want to do with regards to the outcome of the results. So now that they have realized that protest is necessary to fight for things, they're welcome. Even though, you know, I don't like the fact that they only protest when it affects their interests, you know, personally, which makes it look like they're very selfish people. You want to see them protest for other things too. You want to see them protest for education, protest against fuel, scarcity.
But Mr. President
protested
for fuel subsidy, him, Tunde Bakari, the Occupy Nigeria protest.
That's what I'm saying, you know. But you knew that when they were doing fuel subsidy protests, they already set their sight on 2015 election. That was what our protest eventually turned out to be. They already knew that the outcome of Occupy Nigeria would take them close to what they have always wanted. And also, the protest that led to 2023 was NSAS. Politicians did not protest, but they hijacked the NSAS gains. You know, some on the right, some on the left. So this time around, whatever protests were done, because it looks to me in recent history that a seismic shift happens almost after a major uprising. So if there's going to be another one, then we should manage the outcome because the politicians are so smart, you know, I mean, very shrewd. I won't call it smartness, but, you know, very shrewd, deceptive, and very manipulative when it comes to hijacking the gains of mass uprising.
So do you think the politicians who are currently joining will maybe hijack the gains of these protests?
Why do you think they're joining? They want to be seen as aligning with the people. I mean, this is probably Amaechi's first protest. You know, they used to tell me that he protested in the university. But you could tell that when he got there, it was something new, you know. I mean, you don't come to a protest just like the emir of...
with security details.
Yeah, with bodyguards, you know. And same thing with Peter Obi, he just dropped his and then he turned back and said goodbye to everybody, please. You've seen me, I've marked the register. But it's a good starting point.
No, I mean, unlike you, where, I mean, we had videos of you even running to ensure that
tear gas.
You avoid, because you are fully involved, right?
You see, people don't understand that when you want to do a protest, you have to make sure it's successful. So if you see me going to a protest and I'm wearing agbada, I'm not ready for a protest. But if you see me wearing sneakers, jeans, it means that if you are displaced in one place, you have to move to the other place. That eventually became the most successful protest, the Nnamdi Kanu protest, because we were able to relocate from Transcorp, where the police had already laid siege, and arrested the leaders. If I had been arrested by 8 a.m., the protest would have just ended right there. But because we relocated to different parts of the city, it became a very, very successful protest. You know, the flight disruptions, and the government would never, never forget that protest. So that's how to protest. They should come to our school and learn how to protest.
Okay. All right, let me go back to Peter. There is a major concern here. Peter, you were live with us here in the studios in Lagos. And during our conversation, I think, was it last week or thereabout, you had mentioned, like a seer, that you are certain that INEC would bring a budget, a bloated budget of 1 trillion naira. That's what you said. But this morning, as we speak, there's 873 billion naira that INEC has presented before the Senate, getting ready for the 2027 elections. I would like to hear your take before we come back to the studio to hear Mr. Sowore's take on the budget. But what's your take on 873 billion naira compared to what was in 2023?
I mean, governance in Nigeria is organized criminality, because you need to go and look at the details of the budgets of almost every agency, not only INEC. And then, is it not a shame that in Nigeria, we budget these huge sums of money? For Mahmoud Yakubu in 2023, it was about 300 and something billion with another supplementary budget. And then now, Amupito is taking about 870 billion. This is for 2026. INEC will still have another budget for 2027. If INEC needs a supplementary budget for the election, it will be added. But guess what? We spend these billions of naira on a charade, and then we all then sit and wait for the judiciary to pick our leaders. That is the judicialization of democracy in Nigeria, where people spend money on a fraudulent process that nobody, people, even those who are contesting, do not believe in, because they know they are also saving enough money to now head to the tribunal to begin to exchange hands with judges and all of that. So we will ask the question, when INEC says we are spending 200 billion on electronic technology, what exactly are the details of electronic technology? Who approves this budget and what exactly do they do? Mind you that throughout INEC's elections every year, I have mentioned it in videos on my platform, different companies, some trade companies and all of that are being awarded contracts in the tone of hundreds of millions going to billions to provide electronic technology. If in 2023, persons were given those contracts and somehow there was a glitch, my brothers and my sister, which of those companies or contractors were taken to court? Which of them have been invited to explain to Nigerians the money that was released to you by INEC? What exactly did it do and why did it fail? Who are the contractors handling projects in INEC? What is the transparency and the bidding process? Are we sure that it is not politicians who are being given contract to print electoral sensitive, so-called sensitive materials? How is INEC spending the money that is given to it? What independent body is auditing INEC? Are you sure if we carry out a thorough audit on INEC, we will not see the hand of Jacob and the voice of Esau screaming in INEC? It is a lot that is going on in Nigeria. We are looking for more than 200 trillion in NMPC, NIMASA is there, the Ministry of Power is there. If Nigerians do not fix this election issue by 2027, the criminality in government will be consolidated on. And that is why, for me, I'm pleading with everybody in opposition, we must unite at this point. Civil society, Nigeria, everybody must see how we can build areas of consensus and build bridges to work together. Imagine, a Nigeria where you can see maybe a Sowore Senate presidency and an Obi or any other candidate presidency. Imagine people working together, finding common ground to work together, because all of these figures and things you are seeing are figures and documents of absolute criminality. But you can never hold anybody to account as far as these same persons are still in government. That is why, for me, my focus is elections. We must fix that one.
All right. Just to piggyback off what Peter has said, he said his focus is on elections, even though the protest is to ensure that the transmission is done in real time. And that's also a sentiment you shared earlier, when he said this is not your actual focus, that your major focus will be on elections. And when we come back from this break, I'd like you to explain what you mean by your focus being on the elections. For our YouTube audience, please drop your comments and your thoughts in the chat box. We're streaming via News Central TV Live. And we'll be right back to continue this conversation after the break. Welcome back to Breakfast Central. We're still looking at the elections, the requirement for electoral reforms ahead of 2027. And we're still joined this morning by the convener of Revolution Now movement, Omoyele Sowore, as well as human rights and electoral reform advocate Peter Akah, who's joining us virtually from our studio in Abuja. Before we went on the break, Peter was talking about how his focus isn't just about electoral reforms, but elections. And at the start of this conversation, that was also a line that you shared. When you say that your focus is on the elections itself, what do you mean?
Well, first, let me correct one thing Peter said. He was saying that, I want to see Nigeria of Sowore Senate president. No, Sowore is not going to be your Senate president and will be your president. It's Sowore's presidency and Obi's retirement. I want to retire all the politicians who have put this country in the condition that it is today. And that's why I welcome them when they start protesting, because this is just their start. The people who are doing the heavy lifting in making the country are the ones who deserve to run and lead it, including Peter himself. And that's what I told Peter when we got to the reason I didn't come the first day is I don't want to hear that we protest and when it's time for election, you recommend the people who sit back in comfort in their home to lead you. And when they misrule the
heavy lifting.
Yes. Yeah. When they misrule the country, you call Sowore out again as if we are grass cutters. So I want to correct that. But the second aspect of it, when I talk about election, is not that, you see, one thing you must understand is that Nigerians are progressively moved away from election. This last 2023 election had, in the history of Nigeria, the lowest participation. 28% of registered voters participated in election. That's telling you that people no longer believe in elections. But election, as I see it, is one of the alternatives for my own revolutionary idea of taking this country. We can have it by the ballot or by the people. We can resolve this anywhere, in which it still means or feels that people still believe in elections as their own way of changing their socio-political situations by changing leaders. But if we don't want to deceive ourselves, more and more people understand that elections alone cannot solve Nigeria's problem. We've seen what elections, even where elections are transmitted, election results are transmitted as instantly as they're happening. It hasn't produced the kind of leaders we want.
It's not the silver bullet.
It's the same, yes. And at any rate, what is transmitted is what has already been rigged from EC8. That's why I said it's just a screenshot transmission of election results. But if we want to believe in elections, it must be total, it must be transparent, they must be credible, so that if anybody walks, one of the things I don't want to hear about election is that after we spend all these billions, you just have some 7 judges sit in a corner and decide who is the president of the country or the governor of a state. Those are not elections, those are selections. And that's what I'm against. I believe in democracy, I believe in free and fair elections, but I don't think that where we are is even going to guarantee us anything, because these guys have completely hijacked. We're talking about INEC budgets just now. So one of the things that people don't pay attention to is what INEC gets involved in that it has no business doing. Printing those plastics they call voters card are used twice every 4 years. INEC should have no business, printing ID cards. Maybe the only time you use it is boarding a plane or, a vehicle. So if you already have NIPSI printing card, you have a driver's license, you have international, you should be able to present any of these or at least 2 of them
that would identify
you. So if you get rid of printing of plastics by INEC, you will reduce their budget. And if you go electronic, you will reduce a lot of logistic issues, because instead of carrying ballot papers and papers, you just carry a massive board of election, electronic vote machine. And when you get there, you press in your number and name. It brings through your name, and it provides you with your ballot for, yes. And when you're done, you press, it will ask you, are you sure this is what you want to do? It checks with you again. You say yes, you print it, and it sends to your phone a copy of it, or it sends to your email. So if there's an argument about who you voted for, you have a copy. Same way you have a copy of when you do a transaction sending money to people.
What you're painting is an ideal picture. And many people would argue that our current realities don't support this.
No, I don't support the argument that our current reality.
When they say that our current reality,
look at NIBS, the bank transfers.
Right? Yeah, of course. Our current reality supports banks. Look, I was making an allusion yesterday at another interview that in the past, if you go physically to collect money from the bank, you have to carry a bucket of water to count ₦1 million. You can't count. The bank person can still steal 5,000 out of it. You won't know. But today, electronically, the moment you transfer, there's nobody who can steal between what you transfer and what the person gets. That's what the electronic did. And then you can also deploy blockchain technology. And the people who are saying that we're not there yet are living electronic life. All right? They are flying 30,000 feet, rubbing feet, and sending pictures from there to the rest of us. They are already traveling in the space. They are living in mansions where just to turn on their gas. Yes. Yeah. They just use, the fingerprints to enter their houses. They use it in flushing their toilets. But they are telling you, you can't use electronic voting in 2026. Don't let us keep giving these excuses.
I'd like to bring Peter Akah back into the conversation. And since your focus is elections, Omoyele Sowore mentioned something very instructive and sobering. After spending almost ₦1 trillion on elections, people better show up for the party. He said that in 2023, the turnout was an abysmal 28%. So we had about 93.47 million people registered voters, and only 24.9 million people actually voted. How do we reverse this? How do we improve the numbers? And there's also a saying that the more people show up and turn out for elections, the harder it is to rig. Could you help us shed more light on that?
Look, a good product sells itself. If people believe that their votes count, automatically you are addressing issues of voter apathy. Once a majority of the citizens in the country believe that what I come out to do is a waste of time, people continue to sit it out. But I agree with you to the extent that Nigerians must understand that this idea of voter apathy is deliberate. The current systems and the political class want a society where people continue to be so disenfranchised and disillusioned and discouraged, so that the lesser persons turn out to vote, the easier it is for you to rig, for you to save money to buy votes, and for you to carry out your shenanigans and announce a winner. If millions of people mobilize and turn out to vote, it becomes even more difficult to rig. But between now and that point where millions of people will have confidence, we must carry out these actions we are carrying out, which will be what? Letting people know that there is a process that can institute or institutionalize transparency into the system. Let Nigerians believe that, look, come 2027, we have done certain things to ensure that the votes will count. But we are also not going to sleep on our own axis. We are going to call out Nigerians to mobilize to not just vote, protect and defend their votes. And that is what brought me to, to respond to what Oga Sowore, Comrade Sowore said. The instance I gave about the Sowore presidency and Obi is an analogy or a scenario of collaboration, because it will the West say it is insanity to repeat the same action and expect a different result. We will either ask ourselves, do we want to make progress as a country, or we want to continue this infighting and then give access to the criminals in power to continue to lead? So it is either we want to fight and take out the ruling party or the persons who we do not agree with, or we also become the opposition of the opposition, because we cannot continue in this, oh, B is bad, this is bad, that everybody is bad. We have to come together and agree. What are the common grounds? Where can we work together? I can also imagine an Olive Emodi House of Reps where she becomes speaker, a Johansson Senate presidency, a Peter Akah Senate presidency. But before we get to that point, we must agree, because we are not even in Rome or in Mecca, where we call holy lands, where there is no corruption or where there are no bad people. But the question is, as Nigeria is today, how do we move from here? Do we continue this personal fighting, or do we come together, look at our common interests, and then when you begin to think of how to hold personalities accountable? Because everybody we complain about today, we complain about them because there have been no punishment for bad behavior. There is no deterrence. So if those persons who can ensure punitive measures continue to stay out of government, and we continue to talk outside, how do we reform the system? So we must find a way where credible people get into the process. Everybody must not become a president. We can also take over the National Assembly, where we carry out real oversight and not become this rubber stamp kind of Akpabio Senate, where they can borrow money from Pampe to clear money points. They can stand on the mandate which they shall collapse. They have become actually an APC town hall. We must decide whether we want to change this system, or we just want to continue to play around. So for me, that is the procedure. Nigerians must make sure that they know that if you come out to vote, your votes will count. If you chose and insist that it should count. And even now, we can use that energy to ensure that every legal and legislative loophole is plugged so that we do not end up in court. Let those who want to rig election go to court. That court has become a general hospital. We only go there to take bandages on wounds without anesthesia. Votes must count at the polling unit and the accurate result must be announced.
Okay. We'll go on a quick break. When we come back, Mr. Sowore, we'll be looking at the management of this entire process, especially from the Senate. Some have pointed fingers at the senators when we saw the divide. Some have said that the senators are well aware of what's going on and they seem not to do anything. In other words, they're not representing the people. Well, let's go on a quick break. Stay with us. Breakfast Central continues shortly. Welcome back. We're still having the conversation, heated one, if you may call it, concerning Nigeria's drive towards having a free and fair election, with INEC releasing a budget and not forgetting to the call for electronic transmission. Our guest is Omoyele Sowore live in the studio and Peter Akah also live in Abuja studio. But let's come back to the big question I wanted to ask before the break. Aside from a few senators who had gathered together and held a quick press conference stating clearly that they were not in support of what is being spread across different public sectors. What do you make of the senators, those who have fought against electronic transmission? And even though their names and numbers were flying on social media and their constituents and so on were told to call them and put them to order, do you think that the senators are also part of Nigeria's electoral problems? I'm going to start with you, Peter Akah, before we come back to Omoyele Sowore, who also has more questions to also touch on.
They are accomplices and the foundational basis of the problem. And the 109 senators of the 10th Assembly should be thoroughly and decisively ashamed of themselves in the way and manner they have conducted themselves and are watching and standing by, either standing by or being direct and active participants in the assault against democracy in Nigeria. Senator Inaya Abaribe stood up on the floor of the Senate and had put up a motion that senators should vote individually so that Nigerians will know who exactly is for and against. But somehow that motion was withdrawn. If you say that a majority of you in the 109 of you chose real-time mandatory electronic transmission of results, but somehow a handful were able to, led by Senate President Akpabio, were able to undermine that process, why did you not begin impeachment procedures against the Senate President? Why are leaders who were sent to represent the aspirations of the people acting as though they are subordinates to the Senate President? Is the Senate President higher than other senators, or they together decided to elect a senator? So if you are seated there and you are trying to push the blame, oh, I supported, oh, I did not support, all 109 of you have failed Nigerians. You have an opportunity to go back and do the right thing. It is important for you all to have a roll call and say, look, let us know who stands for this and who stands for what. And that is why we need to have people in this assembly who will do away with this kind of situation of the ayes and nays, have it, aye, if you don't support, say nay. Let every statistics be put out. Let Nigerians know, as it is done in civilized societies, who voted for, what is your voting history, what do you stand for in parliament. Not people just going there, taking money. We are spending billions of naira, servicing the lives of persons who add no value to our own process. And at the end, they begin to push it to us. Oh, we should go and hold them accountable. You were sent there to hold government accountable. That is the job of members of the National Assembly, to carry out oversight on every other arm of government. So I do not take that excuse of some of them did this, some of them did not do that. If you are a majority, then prove that you are a majority. Nigerians, our questions or our demands are not ambiguous. It is simple. We need transparency in the electoral process. INEC has confirmed that this is possible. You only need to legislate to back up what INEC has said it is already doing. Please Please, why this mischief? So the 109 senators, if you have an opportunity, you have an opportunity to do the right thing. Between now and 24th, if you don't want to do the right thing, Nigerians must insist and mount the necessary pressure, because the power of the people must be greater than any sycophant in power.
Now on 24th is just 10 days. We just have a 10-day window. How much impact can we achieve in 10 days? Let me come to Mr. Omoyele Sowore, and then we can come to you, Peter.
So this is part of the reason why I said the changes we need must be greatly, greatly fundamental. There is no reason why in 2026 there is no electronic voting on the floor of the Senate, so that every senator, we can see how they are transparently voting on the floor of the Senate. So this whole decision we are taking, we must not take it lightly. The other issue I want to raise is that, you see, these senators know what they are doing. And this is a survival game, because they know that if there are transparent, credible, free and fair elections in this country, 99% of them cannot be senators in Nigeria.
Yes, very correct.
There's no country in the world that will tolerate this bunch of loafers to run their National Assembly. And that brings me also to my position earlier, that this idea that we should tolerate just anybody because you need an opposition, that was what pushed people to be voting for characters who ran to Labour Party, and also now in the Senate, sabotaging the democratic process. You have senators who ran on the back of people like Peter and the rest of them who said Labour Party was the best, and you know, it was the greatest collection of people with great character. Where are your House of Rep members that you use Labour Party to put in the National Assembly? Where are your senators you use Labour Party to? Yes, even at Barry Bay that you are talking about, you have just exposed him online now. All of them are dubious people. I say this categorically. I know all of these guys. And that is why you cannot see me in an opposition coalition for the sake of opposition. You cannot see me in an opposition coalition with a Babashir Lawal or with an El-Rufai or with Malami, who 2 years ago, we're not talking about 10 years ago, we're not talking about 1993. These are guys that were killing this country 2 years ago. I mean, as of 2023. They are the ones who brought the country to the sorry pass. And you want me to go and say, well, everybody cannot be saints. I'm not looking for saints. But the people who refuse to repent as sinners have no basis to become pope. That's my position. And I'm just replying to him on a religious basis because they use that. You see, Nigeria has over 200 million people. You cannot tell me that the only great people among them are the same 10,000 people that has failed and failed them as governors, as senators over the years, and that we cannot find great people amongst 24 million minus 93 million. Let's go back to the majority that have been silent, who have lost interest. And the only way we can inspire them to come back to fight for our electoral campaigns is to present quality candidates. You cannot present the guy who got a contract to construct a road, did not do it, back to me and said, let's tolerate him. Or the guy who sent me to jail. You want me to tolerate him so that I'll go back to jail again, or my children will be sent to jail by his own children. There's no country who develops on the back of that. Even the US today, where everybody is afraid of Donald Trump, some people stood up to him in Minnesota. All right?
And he backed out.
And he backed out. By now, they have almost folded his eyes operation, at least in Minnesota. Now, he's saying that 700 of these officers, his goons, are taken out of Minnesota. It's because people did not back down. But if it was here, we would be praying to God to appeal to Trump to leave Minnesota. But Trump is not going to listen to God because Trump believes in God.
Okay, before we wrap up this one, I want us to go to what happened yesterday. I don't know if everyone's on the election, because I want us to talk about budget presentation and what happened between our lawmakers and some of our ministers. Let's get your sense of, some of the issues that happened. We saw what happened with Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan and the Minister of Steel. We saw what happened, the sort of face-off between a number of the lawmakers. Look, what do you make of the budget presentation?
Yeah, that one is meant for, influencers. Any serious House, Congress, Assembly is meant to be a place of passion. People are supposed to fight. Yes, there was a fight.
Like Turkey.
On the Turkish parliament. There's been fights the whole of last week in the U.S. Congress.
Yeah.
They were insulting themselves when Pambondi came up. They're taking everybody to the cleaners. They're putting their feet to fire. That is what the National Assembly is all about. We shouldn't over-dramatize people fighting at national. If people don't fight at National Assembly, why did we learn debate in secondary school? Is it not to fight ourselves until we agree and disagree? It's only that we should ask, what are they fighting for and what are they fighting over? And are they really fighting at the end? That's the question.
Very important. Just before we wrap up this conversation, Peter, last one on elections, and the bone of contention and the big elephant in the room is the electronic transmission of election results. But this exercise, this voter election reform exercise, has been going on for over 2 years. So without, throwing away the baby and the bathwater, are there other aspects of this reforms that stands out for you, and you'd give the National Assembly a pass mark? For example, the penalty for vote buying has been increased to I believe about 5 million naira, and there are other things that stand out for you.
Mr. Benga, anybody who tries to address a symptom of a problem and avoids the root cause is being mischievous, and it is dangerous. The most important aspect of our electoral process today is the process between voter registration, voting, transmission of results, because we must reduce human interference. If you want to fix any other thing and avoid this one, it then means you are trying to be intelligent by half. And it also goes to the issue you just talked about now, because we must not downplay the kind of infighting we saw at the Senate yesterday, because what we are seeing before with lawmakers has become comedy central, where you see a senator like Nwebuni screaming at another senator, all in a performance to protect the interest of your own godfather, the Minister for Works, who, by the way, is said to be a professor in training. Did you hear that from those budget defense, the Minister for Health stated that out of the 200 billion that was allocated or approved for the Ministry of Health infrastructural projects in Nigeria, less than 37 million was released to the Ministry of Health. Meanwhile, an SA on media to the president received over 500 million. That the presidency spent within 2 years more than 34 billion for forex on foreign travels. One air company, I think Overland, in one day received more than 150 million for air tickets for President Tinubu's international travels. Meanwhile, the Federal Ministry of Health in Nigeria got less than 40 million approved for a year project, and today health workers have been in strike since November of last year. Nigeria is in crisis. In the Ministry of Solid Minerals, do you know that we are still budgeting money to pay salaries to more than 3,000 staff of Ajaokuta Steel Company, a place that is overrun with rats and reptiles? Nigeria is budgeting money every day. Nigeria as it is today is in the hands, is being managed by criminal elements. And if we do not fix this situation of elections, Nigeria will consolidate on this level of brazen criminality and corruption. And that is what we must reject. So anything they are doing with the Electoral Act that does not guarantee voting to count, to me, is unacceptable. And until we get there, we will not stop.
Okay, it is quite a conversation that has been had this morning, packed, full, intense, and we'll not stop talking about the changes that need to be made to ensure that we have the Nigeria of our dreams, which, of course, talks about enforcing our democracy, and elections are a key role. They play a key role in determining the quality of any nation's democracy. I'll give the both of you 30 seconds each for final thoughts as we wrap up this conversation. Let's come to you, Mr. Sowore.
I donate my 30 seconds to Peter.
All right, Peter, you have 1 minute. Final thoughts.
I mean, thank you for all you do, Comrade Sowore, and even all of us. I believe that in Nigeria today, we should even move not just from political figures as opposition and look at the people's opposition. Nigerians, this is about our lives. Persons who are running for presidency today have nothing to lose if they decide or if they do not even get to the presidency. It is we who are the collateral for bad governance. Let the people's opposition wake up and demand that we save and rescue ourselves. It is about us. If we do not fix this, nobody will. Nigeria will be great because Nigeria has you and me. God bless Nigeria.
God bless
Thank you so
Nigeria
much.
indeed. Peter Akah, thank you for joining us this morning. Mr. Omoyele Sowore, thank you for joining us. I will continue to follow up with the updates. Peter, you said the protest continues. When is the next day?
Between now and 24th, we have to be doing some activities. Then 24th, Akpabio will meet us, having some siesta in front of the gate. 24th of February is when the Senate is resuming. But between now and then, we must do something. So we'll be hoping to hear from even our guys.
All right, no problem. We'll follow up with you. Thank you for your time with us this morning.